My grandmother spent 43 years dreaming about a house she never thought she'd own. Not just any house, a small blue Victorian on Maple Crest Lane with a wraparound porch and a garden out back big enough for tomatoes and roses. She used to walk past it on her way to work at the diner, back when I was small enough to hold her hand and short enough that the porch railing looked like the top of a castle wall. "One day," she'd say, squeezing my fingers. "One day, Nora, that's going to be my house." She never got the one day. Life kept handing her bills instead. My grandfather's medical debt. My mother's struggles. 2 jobs that never quite added up to enough. By the time I was in college, Grandma had stopped saying "one day" out loud. I think she'd stopped believing it entirely. I hadn't. I spent 12 years building a marketing consultancy from a laptop in my studio apartment to a company with actual employees and actual contracts, and, eventually, actual money. The kind of money that lets you do something ridiculous and wonderful for the person who raised you when your own parents couldn't. So when Maple Crest Lane came up for sale last spring, same house, same porch, same garden gone wild with weeds, I didn't think twice. I paid it off in full. Cash. No mortgage, no strings, nothing but a set of keys with a bow tied around them. I'll never forget her face when I put them in her hand. She didn't understand at first. She kept asking whose keys they were, why I was giving them to her, what she was supposed to do with them. And then it clicked. I watched it click. The way her mouth opened and no sound came out. The way her hands started shaking so badly, I had to close her fingers around the keys myself. "Nora," she whispered. "Nora, is this? It's yours, Grandma. All yours. Forever." She cried so hard my Uncle Tim had to get her a chair. My cousins hugged me until my ribs ached. My mother cried too, saying over and over how proud she was, how she'd always known I'd do something like this someday. Even my Aunt Denise, my mother's younger sister, the one who always had something sharp to say about everyone, hugged me tight and told me I was a good girl for doing right by Mama. We had a barbecue in the backyard that weekend. 40 people crammed onto that little lot, folding chairs from 3 different houses, a cake shaped like the porch itself. Grandma sat in a lawn chair like a queen holding court, touching the porch railing every few minutes, like she still couldn't believe it was real. "I'm going to grow tomatoes again," she told me, beaming. "And roses. Big fat pink ones, right along the fence." "You're going to grow whatever you want," I said. "It's your piece now, Grandma. Nobody can take that from you." I meant it with my whole heart. I had no idea how wrong I'd turn out to be. For the first month, everything was perfect. Grandma called me almost every evening, always with some small update. The roses were budding. She'd found her old rocking chair a home on the porch. She'd started sleeping in past 6 for the first time in her adult life. I'd drive over on weekends and find her humming in the kitchen, and something in my chest would loosen every time. Then slowly the calls started changing. It began with silence, little gaps in conversation where there used to be chatter. I'd ask how her week was, and she'd say fine in a voice that didn't sound fine at all. I'd ask about the garden, and she'd change the subject fast, like the question made her nervous. "Everything okay over there?" I asked one Tuesday night. "Of course, sweetheart. Just tired." "You've been tired a lot lately." "I'm 71, Nora. Tired comes with the territory." I let it go. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was overwhelmed by the upkeep. Maybe her arthritis was acting up. Maybe I was just imagining things because some overprotective part of me was always looking for reasons to worry. But then I started noticing the driveway. Every time I drove past, and I drove past more often than I probably needed to if I'm honest, there were cars there. Not just Grandma's little sedan, but 2, sometimes 3 other vehicles crowded along the curb. A minivan I didn't recognize. A truck with a cracked taillight. Once, an SUV I was fairly sure belonged to my cousin Ashley, and Denise's oldest daughter. I mentioned it to my mother. "Oh, you know Denise," Mom said, waving a hand like it was nothing. "She's probably just helping Mama with things around the house." Being neighborly. Neighborly, I repeated slowly. Denise didn't live anywhere near Maple Crest Lane. She lived 40 minutes away. The following week, Mrs. Petrosky, Grandma's next-door neighbor since before I was born, flagged me down while I was getting the mail for Grandma. "Lot of coming and going over there lately," she said, not unkindly, just observing. More cars than I've seen at that house in years. Didn't realize your grandmother had so much family staying with her. Staying with her. Something cold slid down my spine. How long has that been going on? I asked. Mrs. Petrosky thought about it. Couple weeks now, I'd guess. Maybe 3. I thanked her and walked back to my car slower than I'd walked out of it, my mind turning over everything. The silences, the strange cars, the sudden hesitation in Grandma's voice whenever I asked how things were going. I told myself I was overreacting. Families visited each other. That was normal. That was fine. But when I checked Grandma's grocery bill the next week, she still let me manage the account, a habit from when she'd had nothing and every penny mattered. The number nearly made me choke on my coffee. It had tripled, 3 times what she used to spend, for one woman living alone in her dream house. I stared at that number for a long time before I picked up my keys and decided I wasn't waiting for the weekend anymore. I didn't call ahead. I told myself it was because I wanted to surprise her with fresh flowers for the garden. But the truth is some part of me already suspected I wouldn't like what a warning would give someone time to hide. The driveway had 4 cars in it when I pulled up. 4. I let myself in with my spare key. Grandma had insisted I keep one. So you always have a way to your grandmother, she'd said, laughing, the day I gave her the house. The laughter didn't feel funny anymore as I stood in the entryway, listening to noise that didn't belong in a house meant for one quiet, happy woman. A television blared from the living room. Somewhere upstairs, a bass line thumped through a closed door. Kids' voices shrieked with laughter in what used to be Grandma's reading nook. And in the kitchen, my grandmother's kitchen, the one I'd stocked with her favorite blue and white dishware, my Aunt Denise stood at the stove in an apron, cooking dinner like she'd lived there her whole life. "Nora," she said, startled, then recovering fast into a bright smile. "What a surprise. We didn't know you were coming by." "Clearly," I said, looking past her at the counters covered in someone else's mail, someone else's medication bottles, someone else's children's artwork taped to the refrigerator where Grandma's church bulletins used to hang. "Where's Grandma?" Denise's smile flickered, just slightly. "She's resting." I found her in what used to be the smallest guest room, a room barely big enough for the twin bed crammed into it, boxes stacked against the wall because there was nowhere else to put them. My grandmother, who I had given an entire beautiful house, was sitting on the edge of that narrow little bed with her hands folded in her lap, looking smaller than I had ever seen her look in my life. "Grandma," I said, my voice cracking. "What is going on?" She looked up at me, and I saw it plainly then. The exhaustion, the fear, the apology already forming on her lips before she'd even said a word. "Nora, honey, it's not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. My aunt had moved her husband, her 3 kids, and apparently a small mountain of furniture into the house I had bought outright for my grandmother's peaceful retirement, and had pushed the actual owner into the smallest, saddest room in it. She said they just needed somewhere to stay for a little while, Grandma whispered. "Just until they got back on their feet." I couldn't say no, Nora. She's my daughter. And I'm your granddaughter. And I bought you a house so you'd never have to give anything up again, I said, my hands trembling. "How long has this been going on?" "Almost a month." A month. A month of my grandmother sleeping in a closet-sized room while her daughter's family sprawled through the home meant to be her sanctuary. A month of silence on our phone calls because she didn't want to worry me, or maybe because she was too ashamed, or maybe, and this thought made my blood run cold, because she'd been told not to. "Did Denise tell you not to say anything to me?" Grandma's silence answered the question better than words could have. I stood up, and something in me that had been quietly assembling itself for weeks finally locked into place. I stood there a moment longer, looking around that cramped little room, the boxes stacked to the ceiling, the single small window that let in barely any light, the twin bed with sheets that weren't even Grandma's, that belonged to God knew which grandchild who'd been given her real bedroom instead. "Why didn't you call me the moment this started?" I asked, sitting down beside her, my anger softening into something closer to grief. "Because you'd just given me this house," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "How was I supposed to call and tell you your gift had already turned into a mess?" I felt so foolish, Nora. I felt like I'd let you down. You didn't let anyone down. She did. She's still my daughter. And I'm still your granddaughter, which means I get to make sure nobody, not even her, gets to treat you like a guest in your own life. Grandma reached for my hand then, the same way she used to when I was small, and for the first time since I'd walked through that front door, I saw a flicker of the fight still left in her. This ends today. I found Denise back in the kitchen, stirring a pot like nothing in the world was wrong.
We need to talk, I said. Now.
She turned off the burner with theatrical patience, wiping her hands on the apron. My grandmother's apron, I noted, the one with cherries embroidered on the pocket, before turning to face me. There's no need for that tone, Nora. My grandmother is sleeping in a room the size of a closet in her own house, while your family has taken over every other bedroom. I think there's plenty of need for tone. Our family, Denise corrected, crossing her arms. This is a family house. Mama raised all of us to share what we have. You of all people should understand that you're the one always talking about how families should look out for each other. I bought this house so Grandma could finally have peace after a lifetime of never having enough. Not so you could turn it into your personal apartment complex. We needed somewhere to go, Denise snapped, her composure cracking for the first time. Mark lost his job. The kids needed stability. Was I supposed to let my children end up in some cramped apartment when Mama has all this space sitting here? She's happy to help. Aren't you, Mama? Grandma had come to stand in the doorway, wringing her hands, caught between two daughters, or in this case, a daughter and a granddaughter, who both seemed to want completely different things from her. Denise, honey, maybe we should talk about... See? Denise cut in before Grandma could finish. She's fine with it. This is a non-issue you're blowing out of proportion because you think just because your name is on some paperwork, you get to control what happens in this house. My name isn't on some paperwork, Denise. I bought this house outright. It is legally 100% Grandma's. Not yours. Not mine. Hers. And she chose to let us stay. Denise shot back. That's her right, isn't it? Or does your money come with strings that say Mama isn't allowed to make her own decisions anymore? It was a low blow, clever in the way manipulation always is when it's dressed up as righteousness, and I saw exactly what she was doing, twisting a genuine act of love into a mechanism of control, making me the villain for objecting to my own grandmother being squeezed out of her own home. Ask her, I said quietly. Ask her honestly, in front of me, whether she wants her family living here. The kitchen went silent except for the faint drone of the television in the other room. Grandma looked between us, and I watched her shrink under the weight of the question, torn between the truth and decades of conditioning that told her a good mother doesn't choose between her children. I just want everyone to be happy, she finally said, so softly I almost didn't hear it. Denise took that as victory.
See? She's happy.
We're all happy. Why can't you just let people be happy, Nora? I left that night without an answer, but not without a plan, because I had seen something in my grandmother's eyes when she said those words, not happiness, but fear. And I intended to find out exactly what she was afraid of. By the end of the week, I learned that half my family had already picked a side, and it wasn't mine. Word travels fast in families like ours, usually in the worst possible direction. Within days, my phone was buzzing with messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months, all somehow already briefed on a version of events where I was the aggressor. My cousin Ashley texted me a paragraph about how I needed to check my privilege since I clearly didn't understand what it was like to struggle financially like her mother did. My Uncle Tim called to ask, in a carefully neutral voice, whether I was sure I wasn't overreacting, given how emotional this whole house thing has gotten. Emotional. As if my grandmother crying in a converted closet was an overreaction. Denise, for her part, was not sitting idle. She'd apparently spent that week holding court with anyone who'd listen, painting herself as a devoted daughter simply trying to care for her aging mother while her ungrateful, controlling niece tried to dictate who Grandma was allowed to love and support. She's telling everyone you're trying to kick your own grandmother's family out onto the street, my mother told me over the phone, her voice tight with the particular exhaustion of someone stuck in the middle. People are starting to believe her, Nora. Because it's a good story, I said. It's just not a true one. I know that, but you know how she is. She's always been good at making herself the victim. I went back to Maple Crest Lane that weekend, not to confront Denise again. I'd learned that direct confrontation only gave her a stage, but to see my grandmother alone, without an audience. I found her in the garden, the one she'd been so excited to fill with tomatoes and roses. Half of it had been paved over into a makeshift basketball court for my cousin's kids. The rest sat neglected, weeds choking out whatever she'd managed to plant before her daughter's family arrived and rearranged her entire life. I haven't had time, she said when she saw me looking. There's just always so much going on in the house now. So much noise. Grandma, do you actually want them there? She was quiet for a long moment, pulling at a weed with more force than the task required. I want my family to be okay, she said finally. But I also miss quiet. I miss my kitchen being mine. I miss sitting on that porch without someone's radio blasting through the wall behind me. She looked up at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something like the truth in her eyes. I didn't know how to tell Denise no. She's never taken no well. Not since she was a little girl. You don't have to tell her anything, I said gently. You just have to let me handle it. She'll say I'm choosing you over her. She's already saying that. The only difference is whether it's true. I stayed for dinner that night, mostly so Grandma wouldn't be alone at the table with people who'd stopped asking her opinion on anything happening in her own house. Denise's husband, Mark, barely looked up from his phone through the whole meal. The kids argued over the television remote like it belonged to them. And through it all, my grandmother sat quietly at the head of the table, in the house she owned outright, waiting for someone to pass her the salt. How's the job search going, Mark? I asked, mostly to see what would happen. He shrugged without looking up. Something will come through. No rush. We're comfortable here. Comfortable. In someone else's house, paid for by someone else's money, eating dinner someone else had likely bought with groceries someone else had noticed tripling in cost. I left that night more unsettled than I'd arrived, and it turned out I had good reason to be. That was the night Denise changed the locks. I found out because Grandma called me at 11 at night, her voice shaking, telling me her key didn't work on her own front door anymore. I drove over immediately, arriving to find my grandmother standing on her own porch in her housecoat, locked out of the home I had bought for her, while lights glowed warmly from every window inside. Denise answered the door eventually, in a robe, feigning surprise at the late hour. The locks got changed by accident, she said, though her tone made it clear she considered this an inconvenience rather than an emergency. Mark's been meaning to fix the old ones. They were sticking. We'll get Mama a new key soon. You'll get her a new key right now, I said. Tonight. There was no spare key produced that night. Grandma slept in my car with me in the driveway, both of us too shaken and too proud to knock and beg for entry into her own house, while I quietly took photos of the new deadbolt gleaming under the porch light. Evidence, though I didn't fully understand yet how much I'd need it. The next weeks unraveled faster than I expected. Denise, apparently emboldened by how little resistance she'd faced beyond me, began treating the house less like a place she was temporarily crashing and more like something she intended to permanently claim. Mail started arriving addressed to her and Mark at the Maple Crest Lane address. A cable package got installed in both their names. And then, on a Sunday afternoon that I will never forget, Denise sat my grandmother down at the kitchen table with a folder of documents and a pen. It's just a power of attorney, she explained sweetly, when Grandma called me in a panic afterward. She said it so she can help me with paperwork and bills since I get confused sometimes. She said it doesn't mean anything, just makes things easier. It meant everything. A power of attorney, especially one drafted the way Denise likely intended, could have given her legal authority over my grandmother's finances, her medical decisions, potentially even the house itself, depending on how it was worded. Did you sign it?
No.
I told her I wanted to think about it. She got so upset with me, Nora. She said I was being difficult, that after everything she's done for me, the least I could do was trust her. You did the right thing not signing, I said, my hands shaking with a fury I hadn't let myself fully feel until that moment. Grandma, listen to me carefully. Do not sign anything. Not one piece of paper. Not for Denise, not for anyone, without me or a lawyer looking at it first. By this point, the family had split into two unmistakable camps. Half believed Denise's narrative of a devoted daughter simply trying to secure her mother's affairs. The other half, smaller, quieter, but growing, had started to notice the pattern for what it was, a slow, methodical takeover, dressed up in the language of love. I called a family meeting that weekend, naively hoping that if enough of us sat in a room together, reason might win out over Denise's narrative. It didn't go the way I hoped. "You're all acting like I tried to steal something," Denise said, arms crossed, standing in Grandma's own living room like she was the one who'd been wronged. "I have 3 children. Mark lost his job. Where exactly was I supposed to take my family, Nora? A shelter? While my mother sits alone in a 5-bedroom house." "It's not a 5-bedroom house because you needed the space," I said. "It's Grandma's house because I bought it for her peace of mind, and instead you've turned it into your own private complex, changed the locks on the actual owner, and tried to get her to sign away legal control." "That paperwork was for her protection," Denise snapped. "In case something happened to her. Do you know how expensive lawyers are? I was trying to save this family money. By giving yourself power of attorney over her only asset, you make it sound sinister. It's called planning ahead." My Uncle Tim shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look, I don't want to take sides here, but Denise, changing the locks without telling Mama seems like a lot, even if it was an accident." "It was an accident," Denise said quickly. Mark was going to tell her the next morning. Nobody in that room quite believed her, but nobody quite challenged her either, and I understood then that reasoning with Denise in front of an audience only gave her a stage to perform on. She was skilled at sounding wounded. She was skilled at making anyone who questioned her sound cruel by comparison. If I wanted my grandmother's home back, and her dignity along with it, I needed something Denise couldn't talk her way around. I needed proof. I started quietly, methodically, the same way I'd built my company from nothing, one solid piece of evidence at a time. First, the financial records. I pulled every statement connected to the house since the day I'd handed Grandma those keys, documenting the sudden spike in utility usage, the unauthorized cable installation under Denise's name, the grocery bills that had tripled the moment her family moved in uninvited. Then the neighbors. Mrs. Petrosky, it turned out, wasn't the only one who'd noticed the sudden influx of cars and unfamiliar faces. 2 other neighbors on the street had similar observations, and one, a retired schoolteacher named Mr. Alvarez, mentioned almost in passing that he had a doorbell camera angled toward the street that had been running continuously for over a year. "Happy to share whatever footage helps your grandmother," he told me. "She's a sweet woman, deserves peace in her own home." That footage turned out to be more valuable than I could have hoped. Clear timestamps showing exactly when Denise's family's vehicles first began arriving, how quickly the frequency increased, and crucially, footage from the night the locks were changed, showing my grandmother standing outside her own door, while lights burned warm and unbothered behind the windows. Next came the paperwork trail. I found the folder Denise had tried to get Grandma to sign, still sitting untouched in a kitchen drawer where Grandma had hidden it after our phone call. I photographed every page. The document wasn't just a simple power of attorney. Buried in the legal language was a clause that would have granted Denise authority to make financial decisions regarding any real property held by the principal, which, given that the house was the only significant asset my grandmother owned, was about as close to a backdoor deed transfer as you could draft without outright calling it one. I brought everything to an attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia Chun who specialized in elder law and had seen this exact pattern more times than she probably wanted to admit. "This is textbook," she told me, flipping through the documents. Family member moves in under the guise of temporary need, slowly establishes presence through mail, utilities, and shared expenses, then attempts to formalize control through legal documents the elderly relative doesn't fully understand. You caught it before she signed anything, which puts you in a strong position. The house is solely in your grandmother's name?
Yes.
No liens, no co-owners, nothing. Then legally, your aunt has no claim to that property whatsoever. She's essentially been living there without any legal right, and the fact that she attempted to secure legal control through manipulation only strengthens your grandmother's position, should this need to go to court. Should it need to go to court? I hadn't fully let myself imagine it might come to that, but as Patricia laid out the timeline for a formal eviction notice, backed by the mounting evidence I'd gathered, I realized this wasn't going to end with a quiet family conversation over coffee. Denise wasn't going to leave because it was the right thing to do. She was only going to leave because the law was going to make her. I called my grandmother that night to tell her what came next, and for the first time in weeks, I heard something steady enter her voice. "Do what you need to do, Nora," she said. "I'm tired of being scared in my own house." The formal notice arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who Denise clearly hadn't been expecting, given the way her face went pale when she read the paperwork on her own front porch. "You can't be serious," she said when she called me 20 minutes later, her voice climbing toward hysteria. "You're evicting your own aunt? Your grandmother would never." "Grandma asked me to do this," I said calmly. "This isn't me acting alone, Denise. This is her house, and she wants her home back. She wouldn't say that if you weren't putting words in her mouth. Then ask her yourself. Or better yet, ask Mr. Alvarez, whose doorbell camera has over a year of footage documenting exactly when your family moved in and how things escalated. Or ask Mrs. Petrosky, who's already given a written statement about the sudden change in activity at the house. Or take a look at the power of attorney document you try to get her to sign, the one with the real estate clause buried on page 4, which my attorney has already reviewed." The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. For the first time since this began, Denise didn't have a story ready. The legal process that followed wasn't instant. Nothing involving family and property ever is. But it was decisive. With clear documentation, witness statements, and an attorney who knew exactly how to present the case, Denise's attempts to frame herself as a wronged caretaker fell apart quickly once actual evidence entered the conversation. The judge granted an expedited order requiring her family to vacate the property within 30 days. The relatives who had rallied around Denise's narrative went quiet once the truth came out in full detail. The changed locks, the attempted legal manipulation, the way she'd isolated Grandma in her own home while establishing residency for her own family. My Uncle Tim called to apologize for doubting me. Ashley sent a text that simply read, "I didn't know the whole story. I'm sorry." My mother, who had been caught in the exhausting middle the entire time, cried with relief when the order was finalized. On moving day, I stood in the driveway and watched Denise's family load boxes into their vehicles, the same driveway that had once overflowed with unfamiliar cars, now finally clearing out car by car. Denise wouldn't look at me the entire time, her jaw set in a rigid line of humiliation and unspent anger, but she didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue with. Before she left, she paused at the end of the driveway, glancing back at the house one last time. "You've made an enemy of family for a house," she said. "No," I said. "I protected my grandmother from someone who was supposed to love her. That's not the same thing at all." That evening, with a locksmith installing brand new locks and a security system Patricia had recommended for good measure, my grandmother walked through every room of her house alone for the first time in nearly 2 months, running her hand along the walls like she was reintroducing herself to a place she'd almost lost. It took a few weeks for the house to feel like hers again. We repainted the smallest bedroom, the one she'd been shoved into, back into the reading nook it was always meant to be, complete with the rocking chair she loved and a small bookshelf stocked with her favorite mystery novels. We tore up the makeshift basketball court in the backyard and replanted the garden from scratch, tomatoes in neat rows, roses climbing along a new trellis I'd had installed against the fence. I visited most weekends, and slowly, the grandma I remembered from that barbecue months earlier began to reemerge. The woman who hummed while she cooked, who fell asleep in her rocking chair with a book open on her lap, who called just to tell me the roses had finally bloomed. "They're the prettiest pink you've ever seen," she told me one Sunday evening, sitting on her porch with a cup of tea while I weeded the garden bed beside her. Just like I always pictured them. "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it more than any words I'd said in years. She reached over and squeezed my hand, the same way she used to when I was small enough to think her porch railing looked like a castle wall. "Thank you for the house, Nora. But thank you more for not letting anyone take it from me. I don't think I could have fought for myself. I've spent so much of my life just trying to keep the peace, even when it costs me my own peace to do it. You don't have to do that anymore, Grandma. Not in this house. Not ever again. She was quiet for a while, watching the roses sway gently in the evening breeze. You know, she said eventually, I used to think giving somebody a house was the biggest gift a person could give. But I think you gave me something bigger than that. What's that? You gave me permission to say no. Nobody's ever done that for me before. I thought about that conversation for a long time afterward, about how generosity, real generosity, isn't just about giving people things. It's about protecting what you've given, making sure it actually reaches the person it was meant for instead of being quietly absorbed by whoever is bold enough or desperate enough to take it. My grandmother got her dream house twice, in a way. Once when I handed her the keys, and once again when I fought to make sure those keys still meant something. These days, the driveway at Maple Crest Lane holds exactly one car most of the time, Grandma's little sedan, sometimes mine parked beside it on weekends. The garden is full and green. The porch is quiet except for the creak of her rocking chair and the occasional hum of whatever old song she's humming under her breath. She got her peaceful retirement, finally, at 71 years old, in the house she'd dreamed about for over 4 decades. And I learned something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. That love without boundaries isn't love at all. Sometimes protecting the people you care about means standing firm against the very family members who claim to love them too, because the people who truly love you will never need to take from you to prove it. Grandma's roses bloomed again this spring, right on schedule, fat and pink and exactly as she'd always pictured them. A few months later, I drove up to Maple Crest Lane on a Saturday morning and found Grandma out front, kneeling in the dirt with gardening gloves 2 sizes too big, carefully tying a climbing rose to the new trellis. The porch railing gleamed with a fresh coat of white paint. A hummingbird feeder swung gently near the window, something she'd mentioned wanting for years, but had never quite gotten around to buying for herself. "Come look at this," she called out, waving me over with a dirt-streaked glove. The peace roses finally opened up. I crouched beside her, and sure enough, there they were, soft pink at the edges fading into cream at the center, exactly like she described them to me all those years ago on our walks past a house she never thought she'd own. "They're beautiful, Grandma." "You know what I like best about them?" she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "They're called peace roses. Somebody a long time ago decided to name a whole flower after the thing everybody wants most and hardly anybody gets to keep." "You kept it," I said. "Eventually. With help," she corrected, smiling at me the way she used to when I was small enough to think her porch looked like a castle. "Don't go pretending I did any of that fighting on my own." We sat there for a while in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists in a house that finally, truly belongs to the person living in it. No slamming doors upstairs, no strange cars in the driveway, no tension coiled tight in every conversation. Just birdsong, and dirt under our fingernails, and roses blooming exactly the way they were always meant to. Later that evening, before I left, Grandma walked me out to my car, the porch light casting a warm glow over both of us. "I keep thinking about something you said back when all this started," she told me, "about how I didn't have to keep the peace by giving up my own. Did it stick? More than you know." She patted my arm, her eyes glassy, but steady. "I spent so many years thinking love meant saying yes to everybody, even when it cost me everything. You taught me it's supposed to go both ways. That real love doesn't ask you to disappear to make room for it." I hugged her goodbye and drove home with the windows down, the late summer air warm against my face, thinking about how strange it was that the greatest gift I'd ever given my grandmother hadn't been the house at all. It had been teaching her, finally at 71 years old, that she was allowed to keep it. Some dreams, it turns out, are worth fighting for twice.